Welcome to the Dungeon Talk, a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition podcast providing tutorials, inspiration, info, and interviews about aspects of Dungeons & Dragons. I'm your host, Nathaniel, and you're listening to The Dungeon Talk, Episode 13, Sorcerous Sorcery. Dungeon Talk! Dungeon Talk! Dungeon Talk! Do-do-do-do! Golden eyes flashing, a human stretches out her hand and unleashes the dragon fire that burns in her veins as an inferno rages around her foes. Leathery wings spread from her back and she takes to the air. Long hair whipped by a conjured wind, a half-elf spreads his arms wide and throws his head back, lifting him momentarily off the ground. A wave of magic surges up in him, through him, and out from him in a mighty blast of lightning. Crouching behind a stalagmite, a halfling points a finger at a charging troglodyte. A blast of fire springs from her finger to strike the creature. She ducks back behind the rock formation with a grin, unaware that her wild magic has turned her skin bright blue. Sorcerers carry a magical birthright, conferred upon them by an exotic bloodline, some otherworldly influence, or exposure to unknown cosmic forces. One can't study sorcery as one learns a language, any more than one can learn to live a legendary life. No one chooses sorcery. The power chooses the sorcerer. Cough, cough, cough. I am should not be recording right now, but I need to get a lot of episodes recorded because I've got school coming up soon. So I'm getting this done anyway. So, Sorcerer. Sorcerers are a very interesting class, as sorcerers, I think there are, I categorize the magic users and the spellcasters of D&D in very specific ways because they get a little bit complex on how they do their casting. So the way I usually describe it is you've got magic users who draw their power from a source, and then magic users who learn the magic. Now, the magic users who learn the magic are wizards and artificers, as they usually do intense study and equations and magical mathematics, like arithmancy in Harry Potter, while the clerics and warlocks draw their magic from another being, and druids draw their magic from nature, as well as rangers. So, and then the last one is specifically the sorcerer. Now, sorcerers have a very interesting thing. Sorcerers are their own magic source. They draw magic from themselves. They have intense magical power within themselves. And now sorcerers can really have some really fun builds. Sorcerers can be very, very powerful. And they can also have interesting stories depending on what you do with their backstory and how they became magical. So the first part of the sorcerer section in the player's handbook is raw magic. Magic is part of every sorcerer, and it suffuses their body, mind, spirit with latent power that wants to be tapped. And this is saying that basically sorcerers are big, just magic time bombs that are waiting to go off. They want to be used. Their magic is meant to be used. Spells meant to be cast. The sorcerers are super powerful magic power cores. They're like Rey and Kylo Ren from Star Wars, and Luke doesn't want to train them because of that. They have so much magic power within their bodies that it can be very difficult to train them. Sort of like, I guess, mutants, where they might have like super powerful mutations that they can't control very easily. Now, the section also talks about the appearance of them. Now, this is kind of misleading, as the player's handbook explains it as the appearance, and then you think, oh, what does it look like? No, it's when does the magic show up in different people, because magic, sorcery can come from bloodlines, magical exposure, a gift given to them by a god or being, or maybe they were just infused with magic from an ancient ritual or something like that. And now, so when it comes to like bloodlines, maybe they can come up every generation, so everybody in that family is a sorcerer, or maybe it's every 100 years, one person in that family is a sorcerer. And it can be kind of interesting to play with those. And also like doing things in like I guess a Harry Potter style where you got magical bloodlines and then one person ends up being a squib and they can't cast magic. You can have some fun conflicts and uh, arguments and player tensions and character tensions with that. So the next part is that they don't use spell books or anything to draw their magic. They only use arcane focuses or spell components. Spell components, basically, they use these components to channel their magic, and same thing with the arcane focus because magic is a very difficult thing to use, and that's probably why humans in our world can't do it. And the best they can do is fake illusions. Magicians. No offense, magicians. So then it goes in the creating a sorcerer section, as well as the unexplained powers section. So the unexplained powers section says that they're very hard to find and they're often adventurers. Now this plays into the running theme of every D&D class being very drawn to the adventuring life, and it makes them easy to be adventurers. Because it would be kind of boring if there was a D&D campaign where all the characters were bakers or carpenters or blacksmiths, and they did nothing but. So it talks about the drawn to. You can hear my voice drowning in cheese graters. And it says that their magic is meant to be used, and sometimes they seek something to do with their magic. Maybe they want to get rid of it. They believe it is a curse, or maybe they want to find a reason behind it, or they need it, or they need to find something to do with it, or maybe they're trying to find a way to help people with it, etc., etc. And the creating a sorcerer will talk about their origin of their power, and then a bunch of examples, as they always do. And the sorcerer has a lot of really great examples. I always suggest reading the creating a class section of every class, except for the artificer, because they skimped on that one. The class features. Now, the class features, sorcerers, just like wizards, get a 1d6 per their hit dice. So they are pretty weak. They get no armor. They have weapons proficiencies in daggers, darts, slings, quarterstaffs, and light crossbows. Proficiency in Constitution and Charisma saving throws. They have skills in Arcana, Deception, Insight, Intimidation, Persuasion, and Religion. And then they get some different equipment: component pouch, arcane focus, Dungeoneer's pack, explorer's pack, 2 daggers, light crossbow, or a simple weapon. Blah 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 blah. Now, the next cup is the spellcasting. Now, something that I noticed about this class when I was prepping notes for this episode was that the sorcerer class has literally no sorcerer abilities outside of their subclasses. They've got spellcasting, which is every magic class has a spellcasting section, talks about spell slots, cantrips, and then you can look at the sorcerer table for how many cantrips they know, spells they know, and spell slots. And I think that the spell sorcerer is a bit more of a cantrip focused class, as they start with 4 cantrips. I know the warlock is the even more cantrip focused one because they get like no spells, but they get like no spells and like a bunch of spell slots. They get like literally no spells or spell slots. They get nothing. And they get lots of cantrips, but these guys get lots of cantrips and a decent amount of spells. So, after their spellcasting section, you then go to the Sorcerer's Origin, which is their version of a subclass, and it talks about basically where did their power come from, why are they magic, etc., etc. And then you can go back to the Creating a Sorcerer section for examples on that. The next ability is their main part of the Sorcerer class, the Font of Magic, as well as the next ability, Meta Magic. The Font of Magic allows them to use things called sorcery points. Now, sorcery points allow them to use special abilities. It's sort of in the same way monks use key points, but this is for magic sorcerers. And it's since sorcerers are already a spellcasting class, it has to do with different ways to use their spells or increasing the power of their spells. And it also allows them to use sorcery points to create spell slots if they need them. So basically, as bonus action, you can expend a spell slot and gain a number of sorcery points equal to the slot's level. So you can convert them into sorcery points or convert them into spell slots. So you can transform unexpended sorcery points into 1 spell slot as a bonus action, as well as vice versa. Then you have meta magic. Now, meta magic is a very important thing where you gain the ability to twist your spells to suit your needs. You gain 2 of the following meta magic options of your choice, and then you get another one at 10th and 17th level. And you can only use meta magic on a spell when you cast it, unless otherwise noted, because there's different conditions depending on what you're doing. Careful spell, distance spell, empowered spell, extended spell, heightened spell, quickened spell, sudden spell, and twin spell. These are all the different abilities, and they give you different powers and abilities, and sort of like upgrades or charms you can use on these spells to change their effects. Now, I definitely suggest using quickened and twin spell, as you can light your enemies up with fire, a lot of fire spells with like by using Scorching Ray and Firebolt, and you can light your enemies up. It's really cool. You then, of course, get Ability Score Improvement, which is a 4th, 8th, 12th, 16th, 19th level, and you can increase one of your scores by 2, or 2 by 1, can't go above 20, blah, 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 blah. Every class has this. You know the drill. And now, this is a weird thing, because usually this classes, they get a lot of abilities around 13th level and above, where they become really overpowered. Nope, not for sorcerers. They get a 4th level ability and then a 20th level ability, where they can expend 4 sorcery points when you finish. You regain 4 sorcery points when you finish a short rest. Like, what the heck? So that's because most of their abilities are focused around their sorcerer's origins, and this makes sense because their origins are very specific to your character. And I would suggest, if you're playing a very different character, rather than drawing on one of the previously created tropes of the sorcerer's origins, Draconic Bloodline, Wild Magic, Rune Child, Divine Soul, etc., because sometimes if you're creating a very new character that's very customized and very personal to you, go ahead and ask your dungeon master if you can try and create a subclass or find one online, because sorcerers have very specific sort of abilities, and depending on what you choose and what you want it to be, you can always just like make something and then choose the closest one, but that doesn't always work, because sometimes it's kind of hard, because if you want to play a really I want to play a very mechanical utility sorcerer, that really doesn't work. Like, that's something like, I don't know, Mechanical Soul, like they have Artifice Sorcery. That'd be really cool, actually. I kind of want to make that. Alright, so let's get into the subclasses. First one is, the first 2 are from the Player's Handbook, Draconic Bloodline and Wild Magic. Here's my suggestion. Don't use them. Yeah, I said that. Don't use them. Don't use them. They are very they aren't the greatest, because Wild Magic has a lot of really fun downsides. I mean, the Wild Magic, if you're trying to play a silly character, the idea of Wild Magic is that you can't control it and your magic is literally out of control. So whenever your spellcasting unleashes surges of untamed magics. So once per turn, the DM can have you roll a d20 immediately after you cast your sorcerer spell, excluding cantrips. If that's affected the spell, it is too wild to be affected by your meta magic, and basically, if it normally doesn't requires concentration, it doesn't require concentration in this case. The spell lasts for its full duration, but then you have to roll on the Wild Magic Surge table. And basically, this is why you don't want to play Wild Magic for those who are trying to make optimized, powerful builds, because so basically, when you roll a d100 or 2d10s, you get random effects. You cast Levitate on yourself. You cast Polymorph on yourself. If you fail the saving throw, you turn into a sheep for the spell's duration. Or you cast Mirror Image. You can cast Fly on a random creature within 60 feet of you. You become invisible for the next minute. During that time, other creatures can't hear you. The invisibility ends if you attack or cast a spell. If you die within the next minute, you immediately come back to life as if by the Reincarnate spell. I mean, some of these are really good. Some of them, roll a d10. Your age changes by a number of years equal to the roll. If the roll is odd, you get younger. Minimum of 1 year old. If the roll is even, you get older. Why do you want this? This is just designed for troll players or people who really want to mess with themselves for whatever reason. The Draconic Bloodline isn't that bad. It's got some interesting ideas, and the idea is you got magic blood from dragons, but then this kind of limits you because it's all about dragons. And I do not like limitations in D&D. Like I've in my barbarian episode, I discussed very heavily how I dislike the battle rager subclass. You can check out the episode 1, Raging with the Barbarian, if you want to learn about that. But the Draconic Bloodline, you choose a dragon ancestor, and you basically choose the color of the dragon, so black, blue, brass, bronze, copper, gold, green, red, silver, white, etc. You can speak, read, and write Draconic, and additionally, whenever you make a charisma check when interacting with dragons, your proficiency bonus is doubled, so this is kind of useful. You get a bunch of abilities: Draconic Resilience, Elemental Affinity, Draconic Presence, and Dragon Wings. And basically, besides Dragon Wings, they all manifest different abilities depending on what dragon type you chose. So, like Acid Dragon, you get like resistance to acid, and different abilities depending on the subclass you chose for your Draconic ancestry. So you basically get a different abilities defending you or boosting you with those damage types. And then Dragon Wings, you basically gain flying speed equal to your current speed, which is kind of fun. So the next subclasses, and another bit that I want to talk about, is in the Xanathar's Guide to Everything. So Xanathar's Guide to Everything has 3 brand new subclasses for the Sorcerer. And another part that I usually don't talk about in my class episodes, but I think I will this time, they always have these little tables for creating them, and I talked about this in my Creating Interesting Characters episode about Arcane, and it has a bunch of different tables you can roll on or just choose from to sort of help customize your character. So Arcane Origins, reactions, so when a new sorcerer enters the world, either at birth or later, when one's power becomes evident, see consequences. When your sorcerer appeared, how did other people react? Supernatural marks, so this can be like different stuff that changes you. So your eyes are an unusual color, you have an extra toe, or one of your ears is larger, or your hair grows at a prodigious rate. Rapunzel, etc., etc. And these are fun. So if you're a new player and you want to try and create an interesting character, definitely go ahead and try and look at these tables. They are very useful. So the first subclass in the Xanathar's Guide is Divine Soul. Now this is a fun one, as it's all about angelic and divine magic, and you draw your power from a celestial source. Maybe so your soul is divine or celestial or extra powerfully godly or deific. I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm not sure how to say that. It's like deific. I'm gonna say defic. So it's defic. And then basically you get a bunch of abilities. And these are kind of related to a bit more of healing, because divine magic is generally grouped up with things like celestial healing and restoration and recovery. So you get abilities like unearthly recovery and power healing. And then you also get angel wings, because like, why not? That's otherworldly wings. And the next one is the direct opposite of the healing guy. And this is for all you edgy people out there that want to play a dark sorcerer. So this is your shadow sorcerer. Now your shadow sorcerer is a classic dark magic wielding sorcerer with like shadow magic, and you get like eyes of the dark, strength of the grave. And then a fun one, Hound of Ill Omen. You get to call forth a creature of darkness to harass your foes. And you get like a sort of like dark shadow hound. But I'm sure if you have a nice dungeon master, they would be fine if you changed it to like a cat or a sphinx. Now, why would you want a sphinx? I don't know. Like if you change it to something like a cat or a marmot or a beaver, that'd be funny. Like an super edgy dark dude who has like a pet shadow beaver. That'd be funny. I want to see somebody do that. And the last one is Storm Sorcery, and this was a popular one because I've seen lots of my friends play this, and they're the newer players because you get some powerful abilities. You get a Wind Speaker, where your arcane magic. You can now speak, read, and write primordial. However, knowing this language allows you to understand and be understood by those who speak its dialects: Aquan, Orin, Ignan, and Terran. So yeah. And then you get tempestuous magic, which is a fun thing. You can basically like float up a little bit, and it's a bit more of a cosmetics thing, but who doesn't want to fly up when they are about to like cast a bolt of lightning on their foes? So you get a bunch of different abilities: Heart of the Storm, Storm Guide, Storm's Fury, Wind Soul. These all have to do with lightning and storms and stuff, and it's really cool. And then Xanathar, since it's Xanathar's guide, he always has to leave a little note, and he says, "What is it with people and the weather? It's just the sky weeping and shouting because it's so far away from me." He's a narcissist. So the last subclass is one in the Tal'Dorei campaign setting by Matthew Mercer and James Hayek. I never think I get that right. I hope I'm saying James Hayek right. And this is the Rune Child. Now, the Rune Child is a fun subclass, and I'm flipping through the pages of my book to open to it. But the Rune Child is basically a sorcerer that has this whole thing where their body is infused and covered in ancient arcane symbols and runes. And this can come with some fun character design, because whenever you have a dude covered in tattoos, you know that artists are going to want to try and detail every tattoo and have lots of fun with that. Especially the very creative D&D ones. You get special abilities, essence runes, and you can charge these essence runes and use them for specific abilities. And then you also have things with like your sorcery points to convert to essence runes and charge runes. You get glyphs of Aegis, and you can release stored energy, arcane power within your runes. Sigillic augmentation, manifest inscriptions, runic torrent, arcane exemplar form. And now this is basically Matthew Mercer and James Hayek. Still don't think I'm saying that right. Picking up different like rune names. So you get essence runes, glyphs, sigillic, inscriptions, runic, and then exemplar form. What is exemplar form? Beginning at 18th level, you can use a bonus action and expend 6 or more charge runes to temporarily become a being of pure magical energy. And now this goes back to the saying, once you're 13th level, well, it's not really a saying, I just made that up, but like once you're 13th level, you basically become a god, because you can become a being of pure magical energy. Who thought? And you have a flying speed of 40 feet, your spell save DC is increased by 2, and then when you have resistance to damage from spells, and when you cast spell first level or higher, you regain hit points equal to the spell's level. Does that not sound like a god? Because it is very much so a god. So in conclusion, I like sorcerers. Sorcerers are a fun one. They're not in my like top 10 or anything. My top 10 include there's only 13 classes, so I would be in my top 10. So I guess in my top 5, it's not in my top 5, but it's still a fun one. It's kind of a B tier, I guess. Like if you go like A, B, C, like A tiers like rangers, rogues, artificers. And then you got like your B tier. It's probably a B tier. Like it's kind of a meh. And then there are like 3, and there's like C tier, which I like really don't like though. So I think it's a fun class. It's got some unique abilities, but just a huge thing: don't use the ones from the player's handbook, because they probably aren't going to be worth your while, and you're going to have way more fun playing one from Xanathar's Guide or the Tal'Dorei campaign setting. Well, the one from the Tal'Dorei campaign setting. So yeah, thanks for listening. I want to make a quick shout out because I, with a couple of my friends, so Cade from Burning Block About 99, Rena Brown, author of Isle of the Dark, and Random Wolf 99, who is there's Random Wolf 99, as well as Kate and Charlie from John's Comics with Kids. We are all working together to create a brand new channel called Crazy Click Radio. We're going to be basically uploading challenges, art, and creativity to a brand new YouTube channel called Crazy Click Radio. We will do live streams, play video games, have art challenges. We'll do anything and pretty much anything we want, and just have some fun with it. and we will upload it to the channel. And then at the end of the month, each month, we're going to do a compilation video, or basically an episode of it that's going to have everything, all the highlights and fun moments and stuff that we did that week. And also, I am going to be doing something specific. I'm going to be doing Smogist, which is Smog plus August. You guys are probably going to be hearing this in September or maybe late August. But Smogist is a fun thing. It's an art challenge where basically you come up with a list of prompts for each day in August, and every day in August you draw a dragon. So I will be posting that on my Instagram, so make sure to check me out there. Thanks for listening. See you later. Once again, thanks for listening to this episode of the Dungeon Talk. We upload weekly on Fridays and upload weekly on Saturdays if you want to check out our brand new YouTube channel. You can also find the latest news and updates on our Instagram at The Dungeon Talk. You can go ahead and ask questions on our email, thedungeontalk@gmail.com, and you can listen basically anywhere you can get your podcast. So once again, thanks for listening. Stay nerdy, stay safe. Dungeon Talk! Dungeon Talk! Dungeon Talk! Do 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 do!